Springtime break week, so I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, two series that I just read through and I loved a shocking amount. So for a little bit of context about me, I am a relatively new manga reader. One Piece kicked off my journey of my obsession and deep love for mangas. And since then I've read several other series, but Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z were really never on my radar, but as I speak with manga fans more, people make Dragon Ball references all the time. And so I decided that I wanted to read it just for context, just so that when people make references, I can nod along and say, yes, I understood that reference. My plan was just to get better acquainted with a story that was influential to manga now that I'm a weeb. But I didn't expect to fall in love with it. So I initially checked out this series. I initially started reading this series very casually. I've read through it one time, haven't watched the anime, I didn't know anything going into it. I didn't have any spoilers or even know what the series was about. What I'm saying is, you are not about to get a in-depth, impressive analysis about the series. My goal with this video is just to talk to you as a brand new fan about what I loved about this series. Initially, the thing that charmed me about this series was the stupid humor. I love stupid humor. I love absurdist humor. I love series that don't take themselves too seriously. I enjoy a well-constructed series. I love something that's well thought out and planned, where there's tons of foreshadowing and when things just come together in this beautiful symphony. I love excellent storytelling. And I also love really stupid storytelling, something that doesn't take itself seriously and just has a good time. And when I first started falling for Dragon Ball, I thought, oh cool, a dumb series with stupid humor. This is gonna be a blast. Imagine my surprise when it kicked into a much more extreme battle manga, which I don't care for battle sequences too much. I mean, I enjoy them, but it's not what I read for. But I actually was loving these. It was changing the way I was viewing action and battles in series. Then imagine my surprise again when I actually really started connecting with the themes and character arcs that this series was doing. Again, have mercy on me. I've just read through this once and I did not take rigorous notes, but here is a video on why I have come to love this series. So the original saga, I guess you could call it, in Dragon Ball is an adventure. It's a young boy who is pure of heart and innocent of mind, who is happily living on his own. Living out in the wilderness, he was raised by his adoptive grandpa and then gets caught up in this journey to collect Dragon Ball. So he happily goes off on this journey, but at the end he wants his Dragon Ball back because that's his connection to his deceased granddad. It's loaded with goofy humor, fourth wall breaking lines, off the wall content that is so bonkers and hilarious. The charm of the adventure, the gotta catch 'em all nature of the plot, and the stupid humor all won me over right from the start. But Goku's development as a character starts pretty quickly. He quickly learns how big the world is, how different the people within the world are, and starts developing these attachments. One of the most powerful moments in the early series is when Goku goes from wanting to just get his Dragon Ball back because of his personal attachment to it, to wanting to hunt down every Dragon Ball so that he can get his new friend's father back. The goal is still the same, collect the Dragon Balls, but now instead of it being a very inward-facing goal, he's starting to turn outward. And we get to see the beginnings of him fighting for other people and using his natural strength and ability for the benefit of those who can't fight for themselves. But Goku is also a character with extreme ambition. He works hard, he trains hard to become better. His granddad was a martial artist. We later learn that it's in his blood to be a fighter. So he's naturally very gifted, comedically so, to where he can see a move that takes 50 years to learn and then he can say, like this, and just do it. That's the stupid humor that I love about this series that keeps it light and engaging. But also, if he gets the opportunity to train harder, he will always take it. If it takes months of training to get to the point where he can just enter a tournament, he will do it, and he will do it his hardest, and he will do it as honestly as he can. He doesn't try to cut corners. He doesn't try to lie and cheat his way through. He's going to nose down, work hard, and become better. If that means learning new moves, if it means overcoming an obstacle like the moon turning him into a killing machine or his tail being a weak point, he works hard to control and overcome it. Or if it's something like the moon that he can't work hard to control, then plot will get rid of it for him. He faces several opponents throughout the series. Some are simple sparring matches and some are life and death situations where he gets beat brutally but will not give up, will not stop fighting. His tenacity is really inspiring to me. I love his joyful, doe-eyed outlook on the life. I love his smile that seems to very, very, very rarely leave his face. I love the very simple way that he views the world, but I also love that no matter what obstacle comes in front of him, he will not stop pushing. Goku goes from being this isolated kid that was raised in the wilderness and generally is happy to just, live his life, do whatever, and keep his little memento, to being someone who risks his life and sometimes surrenders his life, multiple times surrenders his life to save the entire world, as well as to get a good fight in. Which brings us to Dragon Ball Z. Now, Dragon Ball Z took me a minute to warm up to because I loved the childlike wonder of Dragon Ball, and then Z right away is like, no, this is sci-fi, you're an alien, and also we fight here. I already loved the action in this series, but Dragon Ball Z said, oh, you like this? Okay, this is all you get now. Or at least that's how it felt initially. That's not what it is, but that's how it felt when I first started Z. But it did win me over. Even before I recognized how much work it was going to do in the character arcs, how much work it was going to do in the themes, it won me over on the fights alone, which is wild. That's bonkers. That's not me as a reader. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z's action is so clean. It's so clear what happens from moment to moment. You can have the most chaotic sequences of action or the most clean, simple sequences of action, and I understand each just as clearly. The stakes that it manages to build is wild to me, especially in a series where there are no stakes, in the sense that, get hit, get healed, die, come back to life, blow up the earth, it's fine. And yet the battle sequences have such high stakes where you have an opponent that seems like he's truly formidable. And it's someone that we have to give all of our strength. We have to fight so hard and team up and work together in order to be able to, by the skin of our teeth, come out alive, only for the next opponent to come, and that one is even stronger and it seems even more insurmountable. Repeat, 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 repeat. We have galactic stakes. We have the Earth being in danger. We have the Earth dying. We have people being terribly injured. We have people dying left and right. We have doggos getting shot. The tension is so strong, and each time, despite the fact that I know the formula, and yet the tension was so palpable. The villains were so evil, and the action was so tense, and they were always right on the edge of being able to succeed. So even though there was a distinct formula that you could identify, it doesn't change the fact that you still end up yelling at the most hype moments. Not to mention that the characters really have to push themselves. They have to train harder, they have to learn more, they have to push themselves to the edge of what they're capable of doing, and then to the edge of their life to fight, and then do it all over again. They have to overcome all these physical hurdles, but then they also have to overcome so many personal hurdles in order to get to that next level as well. Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z changed the way I view action sequences and manga, and I have a video coming out on Friday where I'm going to dig into all of that more. I just am touching on it in this video because we're talking about the series, so the fights have to be mentioned. But in Friday's video, I'm gonna talk about the villains, the tension, the action, the personal and physical growth that they have to go through in order to overcome each foe. We're gonna dig into all that on Friday. I just wanna mention it in this video because it's a big part of why I love the series, but I also wanna make sure that I have time to discuss the other things that I wanted to discuss while talking about the series in the video. So that's Friday. now we move on. Goku is a character who was raised by a martial artist until he accidentally killed him, and then met all of his friends through training and competing in martial arts. As the series continues on, that continues to be true. Goku is constantly surrounded by other Saiyans, other aliens, and other humans that have pushed themselves to their absolute limits to be the greatest warriors they're capable of being. Martial arts and combat are a huge piece of who he is, not just because he's Saiyan, not just because that's in his blood, not because that's the beginning of his life that he doesn't even remember, that's all he was trained to be, not just because it's instinctual for him, but because this is how he's bonded. This is how he's developed relationships up to this point. The only reason Goku is who he is because of an accident. It's because he bonked his head on a rock and lost his memory. His whole personality could be completely different if not for an accident. His entire personality, his entire identity potentially hinges on that one thing. So learning about the track that you were, or the arc that you were on track to have, and it makes sense that he would just reject it all out and say, that's not who I am, that's alternate timeline me, I don't want anything to do with that. But despite that, he still lives for the thrill of the next fight he could have with an equal. To the point of actually potentially ruining everything. I mean, there were times where the Earth was in danger and you could kill Vegeta. You could kill him. He's trying to destroy the Earth and you can just let Krillin kill him. And you say, no thanks, I'd like to have another fight, please. He thrives on fighting. He loves fighting. There is a thrill to the fight that is both inherent in him as a seinen, as well as a huge part of how he has communicated with the world up to this point as a martial artist. He thrills in battle and putting the world at risk on the gamble that I'll be stronger, I'll be able to beat him next time. It's stupid, like it's a bad move. But we see over and over again that he really doesn't revel in killing an enemy. He wants to see if they have the potential to become better, like what he witnessed in Piccolo and android number 18. And it's that potential that Goku sees in people who are practicing evil that ends up being a huge piece of Vegeta's arc. Not only is it a point of friction because Vegeta doesn't appreciate being pandered to, he doesn't appreciate someone going easy on him, he doesn't appreciate people protecting his pride, ironically enough, because the people around him are constantly doing that. And Goku constantly refusing to battle Vegeta, pushing him off, holding himself back. A lot of this frustration is part of what contributes to Vegeta eventually giving over to pure evil again at the end of the story. But it's also Goku believing in Vegeta and giving him chance after chance that is a huge part of Vegeta's arc in the end, which I guess we can talk about now. Let's talk about Vegeta. Vegeta is a character that has been terribly wronged, and his entire goal is to become a Super Saiyan, to be as strong as he possibly can be, and to defeat Frieza. He fails at this, quite humiliatingly, and he's humbled, and he admits that Goku is truly the Super Saiyan. The difference between Vegeta and Goku is that when Goku has arrogance and pride and thinks that he's hot stuff, he's immediately humbled, and then because of his innocence of mind, doughy outlook on life, whatever you want to call it, he accepts that humbling easily and says, okay, train me. I just want to get better. Vegeta accepts the humbling, submits under it, but then keeps regressing back to his old habits, to his old ways. As I understand it, he initially wasn't meant to come back, and that was a fan order. At least that's what my patrons told me when I was reading this and talking to them about it. I haven't looked into this at all, so I'm not going to comment on it, and I'm not going to judge the text based off of the outside influences. I'm just going to talk about what the series did. So he's humbled, he accepts that humbling, but then very quickly just falls right back into, he keeps regressing back into old habits. It's the pride, it's the arrogance, to the point that when people enter his life, people that should be significant to him, he pushes them away, he doesn't want ties to them, and when they try to warn him, hey, you can't do this, we can't do this, the enemy is too strong, we can't fight them, Vegeta says, then go home. But I can fight them. I'm strong enough, I'm me. Constantly he does this, and he's constantly humbled. but he can't learn a lesson, not yet. Vegeta, just like Goku, is an extremely ambitious person. They're really paralleled characters in a lot of ways. He's willing to constantly push himself harder, constantly trying to be stronger, to be the best, to train harder, to get better. Vegeta is significantly less teachable, which means that it takes him a lot longer to learn lessons than it does Goku, but it also means that he gets one of the most satisfying scenes in Dragon Ball Z. He really goes through some great turmoil when he realizes how comfortable he's become. He doesn't stop training. He'll never stop training. That's not in his nature. But he's become a little bit too attached. When he first met Trunks, he pushed him away. He wouldn't even acknowledge him. He didn't want to talk to him. Now he's married. He has actually had Trunks now. Well, he had Trunks when he met him. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, sorry. Now he's actually raising Trunks. He's married, he's raising him, he's an involved dad, and oh no, he cares about his family. He sees the softness and vulnerability as a weakness, and he wants to get back to the very thing that he was trained to be and that he believes is what can make him the greatest and the strongest, and that's to get rid of all attachments and to just focus on fights, which I'm realizing as I'm saying this is kind of a common theme in manga. I finished reading Vagabond recently. Anyway, this leads him, this disorientation with the fact that he's gained earthly attachments. It's the friction against his pride as well as the recognition that he's developing weaknesses that ends up turning him totally dark, being willing to be taken over by someone else, which is against his very nature. But it's that tie to his family, that weakness that he's been trying to push away, that finally starts toppling the dominoes, that leads to him sacrifice himself for them. I'm so mad at Toriyama for making that sacrifice in vain because Boo just regenerated right away. But it's also Dragon Ball, so Vegeta's perfectly fine too. But daggum you. But that domino toppling then toppled the next one, which was his pride and his arrogance, where he was able to admit to Goku, I know you're stronger than me, stop holding back for the sake of my pride, and defeat him. Once the domino of his pride got toppled, then too could he fully embrace more relationships and be able to finally let people in and be the character that he is at the end of Z. I loved Vegeta, not at the beginning. At the beginning he was a baddie. He was a bad guy, you're evil, you need to die. Goku, why aren't you killing him? But once he starts fighting alongside of us, I quickly loved him because his arrogance and his pride and his grumpiness were so charming to me. It was just funny, and his character was such a meme, and the series, while Z got a lot more serious, it continued to meme a lot. It continued to be really funny, and Vegeta brought such a fun, such a fun, angry vibe to the series. I did not expect him to then have a redemption arc, and not one so powerful. I cried when he hugged his son. What even is that? Who cries during Dragon Ball Z? Anyway, while we're talking about Vegeta and Trunks, I also want to acknowledge that Vegeta and Goku have a really hard time raising their kids. I think it's because they're both Saiyans raising half humans. It's in their very nature to crave the next well-matched fight. It's an instinctual piece of who they are, but also for the both of them, it's how they've gained almost all their relationships. So they do the things that only make sense to them by their nature. Those things don't always make sense to us. Like, one of the funniest things among the many funny things for me is when Vegeta and when Trunks is young and they decide that they want to go enter the tournament again, and Vegeta's like, all right, I'll start training. I never stop training. I'm still peak, but I'll train some more. And he starts training more, and then Trunks attempts to train with his dad, and Vegeta's like, I don't care. Be around, don't be around. This means nothing to me. But it's not until he finds out that both Trunks and Goten are actually learning to be Super Saiyans and learning to fly, and they're quite powerful. Vegeta essentially asked him, are you stronger than the neighbor kid, or are you a disappointment? Vegeta loves Trunks, absolutely, but he doesn't know how to relate to him outside of battle. So it's not until Trunks shows him that that the next generation is actually incredibly strong, which is a huge theme in the series, by the way. The next generation being able to stand on the shoulders of the greats of the past, both Vegeta and Goku's sons being prodigies, when these two themselves were prodigies. The impact of the next generation on the world. He loves his son, but he doesn't know how to relate to him until his son shows great potential in what? The only thing that these two men have been able to relate to people on and develop relationships on: battle, fights, martial arts. I could name a list of examples for Goku as well, examples of how it's displayed that he has a hard time raising his kids too. We do see that Goku is very invested in helping Gohan become stronger. He trains with him, he hypes him up, and Gohan's Super Saiyan moment against Cell is probably one of the single best scenes in all of Dragon Ball Z. But we also can't deny that later on, Goku sends Gohan off to fight a foe. But first, he tosses the foe a Senzu bean. In Goku's mind, he's giving his son a gift. He's letting his son fight against the enemy at full strength. This is the best kind of battle in Goku's mind. That's what he tries to do at the end of the series when he wants to fight Buu reincarnated, and he rigs the fight. Goku, who has proven that he is not a cheater, rigs the fight, cheats, asks Buu to cheat for him so that he can fight Oob when they're both at their full strength and they haven't been tired out and they haven't been injured, because that is a true fight to him. The person who's strong enough to maybe defeat him at full ability. So he passes the Senzu bean because he is giving his son the gift that he knows how to give as a Saiyan and as someone who views the world through the thrill of battle. With Gohan, he sees so much potential in and tries to help him reach that potential because that's all Goku knows. But once he realizes that Goku really doesn't have that thrill of the fight, and in fact his human side is the more dominant side in him, even though he is a prodigy, even though he is naturally an incredible fighter, he doesn't have that thrill like his dad does. I think Goku accepts it because at the end of the story, Gohan's sitting on the sidelines for the next tournament at the end of Z. Gohan's sitting on the sidelines for the next tournament and no one made a fuss about it. Everybody else is in the ring fighting that can fight, that's a really skilled fighter, even the granddaughter who's like a baby. But Gohan's sitting on the sidelines and as far as I can tell, no one cares. So I think Goku accepted what Gohan's arc was, what Gohan's path was. But as Saiyan men, as men who view the world through the thrill of the fight and view relationships through the thrill of the fight, learning how to have a normal relationship is tremendously difficult for them. So bonding with their kids in a human way is very against their nature. This series is really stupid. You'll notice that I haven't talked a ton about the plot in this series. One, because I'm gonna talk more about villains and fights, and that's a lot of the plot in the next video, but partially because the plot is chaotic. It is all over the place, and sometimes it'll say something and then walk it back and say something. It's so fun. Regularly in this series, obstacles will appear only to be taken away the very next chapter. A hard rule will prove itself to be a challenge only for a loophole to come the next chapter. People will die and it's devastating only for them to be brought back to life. Then we're told, don't worry, they can't be brought back to life again. This cannot happen again. They're dead for good, only for them to come back to life. Dragon Balls need a year to reform, but sometimes they take 18 months. We may blow up the moon a couple of times. Senzu beans are passed out left and right. Death means so little that by the end of the series, we have a villain who is killing people left and right for the fun of it, wiping out almost the entire human population and then blows up the earth. But everything's totally fine because there's always more wishes. Even if the Dragon Balls are destroyed, even if there's no more way to have them on this planet, there will be another planet. We'll find a way. But it's also a story of people pushing themselves to the absolute limits, physically and mentally, to become the best best version of themselves, to become the greatest version of themselves that they're capable of. It's a story about loyalty, it's a story about learning, it's a story about self-acceptance and shepherding in the next generation. Even at the very end, when Goku is trying to fight against Oob, Boo's reincarnated form, yes, he says it's for the next generation. He says it's because I want the next person who's gonna look after the earth. I want the next greatest person as strong as me, stronger than me, that can protect the earth. But Vegeta knows that's not entirely honest. There's more to it than that. And then Toriyama confirms that with Goku's next line being, when you get stronger, when you get better, can we fight? Can we fight? And I love that duality of Goku, that yeah, his motivations never change, get stronger, but his internal reasoning does. He still has the thrill of the fight. He's still always looking for the next competitor that's strong enough, that's great enough, that they can actually give him a run for his money and he can fight and get stronger and have that thrill of the fight. But also, along the way, he'll sacrifice his life, he'll sacrifice anything to protect the people he loves and to protect the earth that he wound up on by accident. He was raised to be a killing machine and sent to the earth to destroy it, and he ends up being the earth's protector while still living within the nature of what a Saiyan is, someone who has the thrill of the fight. But instead of using it for destructive ways, he uses it for martial arts, healthy combat ways, while protecting the very planet that he was meant to destroy. I just think that's cool. I think that that's a really cool conclusion to this story. Whew, okay, I have spent a lot more time filming this than I planned to. I have to get to a birthday party for a 3-year-old. Please tell me what you like about the series. There was a ton to cover in this video, and I feel like I barely really even talked about it somehow. So please chat with me more in the comments. I post videos every Monday and Friday on this channel, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays on the book channel. If you like talking about novels too, I'll have that linked in the description. I'll see you again soon. Bye.